Hey everybody, welcome back. This is Robert with my Stewmac LP kit build. Again, this is one of my backup videos. I did a lot of work off camera, and this is me backing up. I did one on the head and setting the neck. We did one on sanding and spraying with vinyl sealer all of the wood. This one I want to kind of back up and talk about what I did to prep the fretboard before I sprayed. Listen, I'm not a guitar builder by no means. I'm not a professional by no means. I would even venture to say I'm not even a novice. This is my first guitar that I've ever built. I own several of them. Excuse me. I've never done maintenance on them other than wiping them down in order to clean them up. I've never done fretboard work. I've never sanded and polished and radiused a fret. So if there's something I've done wrong, which I probably have, please be kind. This is a video to kind of show the Stewmac LP build, because I can't really find any specific LP sunburst builds on YouTube. I see a lot of kit builds, but I think a lot of people are going to the cheaper Chinese kits, which I'm not saying they're bad, but I'm noticing a lot of problems with those kits. Neck alignment, pickup alignment, depths, holes not being lined up back here, so they have to plug them and re-drill them. This is supposed to be the best kit on the market. I know that the older gentleman that does a lot of the videos, I'm sorry I have not learned your name, sir. I will definitely remember that. I see a lot of customers on a day-to-day basis in my business, so names are hard with me. But with all respect, this gentleman stated that he used to work for Les Paul, and with all the other professionals that work at Stewmac, all the videos that they've got, I've got no doubt that they're all professionals there. I'm really confident that this is going to meet the reviews that it's got as the best kit out there. So I'm following their instructions. I'm taking a little bit of woodworking experience and a little bit of metalworking experience that I do on a day-to-day basis and added to it. Made a couple changes here and there, but for the most part, man, I'm really following their manual here. I'm watching a lot of videos on the Stewmac website. I've watched a lot of videos on the Gibson website. They've got some videos there that are really good. You can find them on YouTube as well. Any videos that pertain to what I'm doing that helped me out, I'm going to post them, the links to those for Stewmac. And there's a lot of nomenclature on there too that's not in the book that you can read through specifically about, you know, fitting frets and different things like that. So if there's something I've done wrong, which I guarantee I've probably done a few things, please be kind in the comments. Anyway, so before you spray down the body with sealer, if we back up a little bit here, it talks about working on the fingerboard or the fretboard on the guitar. So the first thing it talks about is using a mallet or a hammer in order to tap in the frets. Sorry, I'm going to grab what I used. So I've got this mallet here. It says don't use a hammer. They show one that looks like brass on one side and a mallet on the other. And just kind of tap these down to make sure. There's even a video on how to tap down frets so that you don't damage them. They were all set really good. I did a real good inspection on all of them. And none of them really looked like they were raised. I seen maybe one right here that had a little bit of a gap, but it might just have been the shadow around it. But I followed the instructions, tapped them down just to make sure. And I used this one here. It's got the removable heads that you can switch out. I got rubber on one end and the harder plastic on the other. And I used the plastic side gently and just tapped it down. And kind of started in the middle and kind of bounced back and forth, working my way out to the outer edge, so that I didn't get any rocking, and I didn't beat on it. I just tapped it. I put a support underneath of it, this foam piece, pretty hard foam, underneath the neck, up, especially up here, to where the head's not sitting on the table and it supports the neck itself while I did it. because you're going to get a little bit of a bounce. You may have a sandbag or something. And then Stewmac sells this half round tool that goes underneath the neck that really gives it a good solid support underneath the neck. I might invest in one of those. I've got another plan to do another build after this. I want to do a V. So I might invest into it, I might not. Anyway, so the first thing it says, tap those down. I tapped them all down. The second thing it says is go in and sand the edges of them down really good so they're not sticking out. It's a pretty dry climate here in Colorado. We literally have 2% humidity. It's insane. And it's the beginning of the summer, so pretty dry here normally, although this is June 10th today, so end of May, beginning of June is our rain season, and boy, it's been giving it to us. As a matter of fact, it's raining outside right now. So we're going from a lot of moisture to no moisture, a lot of moisture to no moisture on a day-to-day basis. And a lot of places I've read and seen on Stewmac website is when you're in a dry climate, a lot of times your wood will shrink or reduce, and it'll cause your frets to stick out. So they may stick out a little bit from when you got it from the factory, depending on where you're at or what climate it's been before you got it. So I did that. I actually they show a little sanding sponge with sandpaper on it. You can buy them from Stewmac, or you can even get it from your hardware store. I actually just used my block, and it says with 320 grit. 320 grit is pretty abrasive, but most of these were pretty smooth and lined up, but I noticed on the top part of the fretboard as I came down past the 12th fret, I got into, it was sticking out pretty good down here. Not real bad, but it was sticking out enough to where you'd probably cut yourself if you pushed hard and ran into it. So I used this and I went across, I think they said it was a 35 degree, I seen on a video, 35 degree angle that those are cut in at. So I really tried to stick to that angle, and I worked that board all the way down on both sides to really bring that in to the trim until I could put my fingers from the bottom of the neck and run them this way and really not feel anything, is what I did. And then of course I work down here. You got to be real careful not to get into the wood on your face of your body here, and just kind of work those edges here and get those worked in as well. From there it says take a straight edge. So I took my straight edge, and it says level your neck. So you take your straight edge and lay it in there, and you look for your gap, right? So a lot of times you're gonna either be high in the middle and you'll be able to rock it back and forth, or they'll touch the first and the last fret, and you'll have a gap in the middle. And then you adjust your truss rod clockwise or counterclockwise in order to adjust that to an upright or a back bend. I believe they call that an upward bow or a back bend. I'm not sure, I might be wrong there too. So that was actually really easy. I've seen a lot of videos where they said don't touch your truss rod, you can snap or break it. But there's actually a video that says don't be afraid. It's titled Don't Be Afraid to Adjust Your Truss Rod. So that caught my attention and I watched it. The main thing that they focused on in there is don't just start cranking on that thing. It's a big long rod through here. It's got a threaded end on it. And of course it's going to tighten the tension or reduce the tension to cause it to bow up or to bow back. We want it to be nice and flat. Of course that may change once we string it, so we're going to have to check that and adjust it several times during the build. This is the first time. But the one thing I did notice is it specified over and over and over again in the video, only go a quarter to a half turn at a time. And I realized that real fast. Even though the instructions tell you what direction to turn it, clockwise or counterclockwise, to get basically the head of the guitar to go up or to go down, I still turned it the wrong way. I had a little bit of a low center, so I was touching the first and last fret, and a little bit of a low center. I turned it the wrong way, and I went a little bit, didn't see any change, went a little bit, didn't see, so I went a half a turn, and I immediately noticed that I was getting even more bow. It took literally probably about 3/4 of a turn to say, whoa, I'm going the wrong direction. So it's not, it's very little movement up here. So I actually went back the 3/4 of a turn to where I was, verified that I did have a low center still, and then I went a 1/4 turn at a time from there until I got it to really even out. I actually overshot it on that last corner turn and had to bring it back about 1/8 of a turn in order to really get it nice and even and flat all the way down. I actually did it one more time after I sanded and put a radius on the frets, just to make sure that my frets were level and that the board was still level, and it works great. So don't be afraid to adjust your truss rod. Just don't start cranking on that thing. My advice is go 1/4 turn at a time, and you're probably not going to go wrong with that. I would hate to set the neck into the body, glue it, do all that work, and then bust the neck or crack the neck because I'm just cranking away at the truss rod. So cool thing is there's no nut up here. You just put the Allen wrench right to the truss rod. Really, really easy adjustment there. Now, after that, it says to level the frets. And you can get this, I got this from Stewmac. This is the 7 1/4 inch block. They recommend an 8-inch will do, but they recommend the 14-inch so that you're covering multiple frets all the way down. I actually ordered this specifically because I knew I was going to have to add pressure down here when I clamped it together. So that's really what I ordered it for, and then realized I had already had it when we talked about leveling, or when I read about leveling frets. So that's why I went ahead and leveled it with the 7 1/4. Works great, covers a ton of frets at a time. So I didn't have any problems with it, you know, hitting a fret or anything. I took double stick tape and put the sandpaper on here. They recommend starting with 320 grit. I think is really abrasive because this is actually softer metal. It really takes metal off fast, so you got to really be careful. I would recommend going to like 400 grit to start off with, just to be careful and to take it down little at a time. Take your time with it. I'm not sure, I have to look. I'm pretty sure because I seen a shot of one of the guys' toolbox on Stewmac. They showed us a picture of a toolbox, and there must have been 30 of these in a drawer. I would bet, I don't know, that they come in different radiuses. Because the first thing I noticed is when I threw this on here, I didn't push down hard. I just let it sit there, put a little bit of pressure, just my hand resting on it, and started working it nice and slow back and forth. It really started taking away from the edges while not touching the center. And it didn't look like there was that much of a radius in the fingerboard itself. So immediately I stopped. I was afraid I might have ruined my frets because it took down quite a bit on each corner here, and didn't really touch the side. And then I doubled back and started reading, and there is a portion where you're going to radius the fret. So I'm thinking, okay, that might be natural. I don't know. I still don't know right now. I've done measurements on them, and they do dive off on the sides, but for the most part, they're the same height all the way across. What I did is lightly go across until it just barely touched the top. They show using a blue marker to color the fret so that you know when you have everything done that you need done. It'll take the blue off. And that's where I stopped. But I went really gentle with it. I didn't want to dig it down on the side and have to worry about refretting the board, because that's really something I don't want to learn and get into right now, especially after all the work I've done on this thing. So be careful there.